Now, from the world's most respected company in actionable consumer marketing research, insights, and analysis, here's Parks Associates' SmartTechCheck with Mark Vina.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Vina, leader of Parks Associates Smart Home Research Practice, and welcome to the SmartTechCheck podcast, where we cover all consumer topics that are smart home, home automation, security, console gaming, and a lot more. Today is Monday, July 12th, 2021. I hope all of you are safe and well. This session is my inaugural podcast for Parks Associates, who I recently joined to lead its smart home practice. I couldn't be more thrilled, as Parks has been an industry icon for terrific consumer insights and analysis for 35 years. We're going to talk about that. And has an esteemed client base that's literally a who's who in the consumer tech space. For today's podcast, I'd like to bring up Elizabeth Parks. She's a great person to kick off this podcast with me. She's the president of Park Associates, to discuss her role at the company and why the company has played such a fantastic position in the consumer tech space, and why data analytics and smart industry analysis is now more important than ever. Elizabeth, welcome to the SmartTechCheck podcast.
Thanks, Mark, for having me. And we're so excited to have you join the firm to help lead us forward in better understanding the growth in the smart home space.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Data is music to my ears, and Parks is all about data and market research and really good primary research. But we're going to get into that. What I want to do to keep the kind of conversation structured, I've got a series of questions I'd like to kind of pose. This is my chance to interview you, so to speak. And let's bring that up here on the screen here. The first question I want to bring up as we go to the next first question is, first of all, I'm always intrigued about asking people about their background and how do you perceive your role at Park Associates. I mean, I have a feeling that you're somewhat familiar with the founder of the company. I'm not sure if I know that for sure, but tell us about your background and the mission at Parks Associates.
Sure. So I started at Parks Associates almost 23 years ago. I'll be celebrating my 23rd year with the company this August. And before I started working at Parks Associates, I was involved with the business at a younger age, as Trisha Parks, who is the founder and CEO of the company, is also my mom. So she started the company out of her house when I was about 8 years old, following a role that she had at a company called Future Computing. And that company was really looking at the adoption of personal computers back in the mid 80s. And after it got bought out by McGraw-Hill, which would have had to take her back up to the New York area, which she just moved to Texas a few years prior, she decided to start her own company and founded Parks Associates. And in the beginning, she was really looking at computing and what the role of computing was going to be in the consumer lifestyle.
Now, how do you perceive your mission at the company?
You know, we have been driven by providing reliable consumer insights and industry forecasts to companies who are navigating the changes that are taking place as a result of new technologies. And so our very extensive wealth of consumer data that we've built up over 35 years has helped us understand really the diffusion of technology for consumers. So the mission that we have is to help serve our clients with the most accurate and reliable insights, as well as an understanding of how different ecosystems intersect and where those opportunities lie to ultimately serve the consumer at home and on the go with, you know, these amazing experiences that happen as a result of technology.
You know what's really so incredible about Parks is that before it was called a smart home, Parks was really about the smart home. They called it different things, 10 or 15 years ago. But ultimately, it really is what has proven to be the smart home. And as we've talked about this before, the category is so wide and so diverse from a solution standpoint, and will continue to be that way for some time. Having real life primary data is so important to marketeers. So I want to bring up the second question that we have on the list here. So I guess the thing that I'm always interested in asking, because there's lots of research firms out there, not many that do the kind of level of primary research that Parks does. But why do clients value analytics? Why do they do they care about the research and the industry insight? I know that sounds like a trivial question, but there's so many competing forces when you're a manufacturer or you're a developer bringing products to market. What differentiates Parks, and why is the information so valuable, and why do you have so many repeat clients over and over again?
Sure. Well, we are really a very, very specialized company. So for our entire decades of being in business, we've taken a very close look at only the technologies that are impacting the consumer, and then that can spill over into the SMB markets. So there's a lot of really great research firms out there, but the depth of knowledge that we have within these specific verticals that we cover, everything from energy management to the home automation, home security to digital media and connected consumer electronics. And then, of course, the foundation of what brings it all together, which are the broadband services, the standards, and then the technologies that are, pushing the industry to really get to this vision of a truly connected home. I think we're still a ways out, but a lot of progress has been made. And so our clients really value that trending data, the look at the market since it was. We can go back 15 years to, when things started, and then we're tracking on quarterly, half year, or annual basis the growth in that market. And if you're a big company who's looking to enter a new market or bring new products to market, understanding how quickly certain products and services will be adopted by consumers really does impact that overall big picture view of where that company might be going. And so our clients are relying on us for the most accurate view that we can provide based on the different data that we collect, in addition to our core insights around the consumer data we have.
Well, I think that's the important point you're making, is that it's not just about data. Collecting the data and making sure it's accurate is obviously important, but getting that insight into it. Why did the data change? Why did this data point go up or down? Is it trending? Is this an anomaly? For example, we've had COVID for the last year, and there's been lots of anomalies driven by that. But understanding that insight and understanding why the data is changing is obviously very important. I know that clients obviously value that.
And one other thing to note is really, really understanding the industries that we look at. So when you look at the HVAC industry, they are not necessarily looking at what the consumer electronics players are doing. And, when you look at these opportunities to intersect between different ecosystems in the home, there's a lot of learnings that have to be shared and insights that cross over, that some industries, may not be familiar with even how another industry works, or if they're looking to make an acquisition to help grow their business and they want to move in, they may, rely on us to help with those strategic insights and understanding of which players may be the best fit, and to help them ultimately, do what they're looking to accomplish.
Sure.
So we take a special look at understanding the players, and we're constantly briefing with the startup community, which is very important to the industry, as well as the players who have been around and helped driven the industry forward for years.
Well, and you make it a very, very important point, because a large portion of the smart home are players that are startups. And startups, by definition, don't have a lot of information. A good startup might be based on an idea, might be an engineering-driven company where they have an interesting feature or capability. And having those insights and having that kind of data helps them fine-tune their marketing strategies. And certainly that's a real important thing that I know manufacturers really enjoy. So let's bring up the third topic. Now, this is a really interesting question, because it really is a very expansive question. Great companies rarely last 35 years. When you're talking about a company that's lasted 35 years, you've got company like the Microsofts and the Apples, not Google. You're older than Google, which I think is an interesting compare. But what's really been the secret? Why has Parks been able to not just survive, but flourish and operate for, over 3 decades or almost 4 decades?
Yeah, Trisha, my mom and our CEO and founder had a vision for the company to be able to really expand and grow with the industries as the technologies took off. And I think that's where we've been able to do that. But we've stayed within this, some people might say a niche or boutique in the sense that we are so specialized. We have data and insights on certain markets like the home security market or the home controls market, the Wi-Fi market, broadband services that really just aren't otherwise available because of the length of time we've been studying them. So I think that our secret lies in that excellence in the data collection and what we're asking consumers, and then how we look at the markets, and then where those insights and analysis are delivered to our clients. We've had to make a lot of changes. If you think of what the research world was like in the mid 80s, before the internet, the company has evolved quite a bit and certainly grown up over time. We've also integrated in more and more executive conferences to help with sharing additional information and bringing the industry leaders together to further advance the overall mission of the different industries we serve.
Now, one thing that Parks does a lot of, which I've discovered recently, is a lot of customized research. So you're not just doing cookie cutter, the same old, cranking out the same research quarter after quarter. You do a tremendous amount of customized research for clients. So let's talk a little bit about that for a second.
Sure. About half of our research practice is custom work. So whether we're fielding an entire consumer survey for a client or doing focus groups, doing competitive analysis, strategic workshops, really anything within the traditional research firm toolkit are things that we do. And we serve clients who are very small and startups who may not have a big budget, all the way to the Fortune 100 companies with larger projects and subscription research services as well.
Now, the next question I'm really interested to get your opinion on. I've talked about this before, so let's bring up the next question. And it's specific to the smart home. Is that there's lots of challenges and opportunities in the smart home. We all agree to that. At a top level, what do you think? Based on the research, you think that the two top challenges and the two top opportunities? We'll just confine it to that. There's a lot more than that, but I think that would be a good place to start. And I would love to get your opinion about that.
Yeah, I think two of the top challenges are just understanding this long-term commitment to the smart home. This is a slow and steady growing space, as it has been, where there's a foundation of technology and new technologies being added on top of that. And so, if you're expecting an ROI in 18 months, usually the smart home space may not be able to deliver that. So that's one thing. I think it's just in understanding the slow but steady growth, still lots of opportunity. And maybe the second big challenge overall for the industry is the integration and then the privacy and security issues. Yes. So that integration of devices, creating a simplified user experience of plug and play, which is what we used to say in the 90s, has to be there to move the market to mass market adoption. Right. And so I think there's a lot of great initiatives in play, including the new one, Matter, with the Zigbee Alliance, now the Connectivity Standards Alliance. So I think we'll see some big things happening, but that privacy and security issue will continue to linger. And I think the industry has to really step up and play a big role for consumers to ultimately have that trust. Mm-hmm. As far as opportunities go, is that other one about the opportunities? The services side of things, the consumer willingness to latch on to new services, whether it be understanding the air quality in their home or understanding, who's at their front door or when their package got delivered or delivering their package inside the garage. Consumers are showing a willingness to add on services and buy devices that provide them value. So I think there's a huge opportunity for the industry in all areas to continue really developing new use cases and then creating that ease of use and that, really delightful consumer experience that we've all been talking about.
Now, interestingly, what I would tell you, and I agree with this, agree with what you said before, is that as the smart home becomes a mainstream market, and it's still not mainstream, for the most part, there are exceptions, but the data clearly shows that Parks generated is that the smart home still clearly is kind of an early adopter, a consumer who really feels comfortable with technology. It's starting to, widen a bit. But as you start to go into more mainstream categories where, technology laggards, people are more mainstream, where the volume is of the market, those customers do have price concerns. They have concerns about privacy. Privacy is not it affects the whole market, but particularly with those type of customers, privacy is becoming a much, much bigger deal. And, you hinted at it, you mentioned it before, interoperability, which is what the Matter Initiative is all about. I don't really want to be a PhD going out to buy 3 or 4 different brands of smart home products that will work together. And I have got to be a genius to make sure that they interoperate with either whether I'm using Alexa or HomeKit, which is Apple's solution, or Google Assistant. So I agree that those issues have to be tackled to make the market much more of a mainstream market. Let's go to the last question that I have for you, and that is, and we could take this could be a 3-hour podcast if we wanted to deep dive into this, but Parks does, have a number of different, research products and services. Give me a couple of minutes on what you believe, are the ones that are the most popular. What maybe some of the products that sometimes doesn't get the visibility, frankly, that it should get. But just give me your commentary, Elizabeth, on where do you see the most popular products being utilized by your clients?
Sure. Well, we have about 90 syndicated reports that we deliver, and many of those are services that come continuously throughout the year. And so I think the most valuable information is information that is coming on an ongoing manner that our clients can leverage and understand where the market shifts are taking place or what has happened within the market, let's say an acquisition or new technology standards released. What does this mean for the next stage of growth? So our tracker services, our trending data, especially with the COVID situation, understanding what were consumers doing before COVID, how have they adapted throughout COVID, and what's it going to look like on whatever the other side of this is. There's consumers have reported that 75% of them had made a major life change throughout this process, and many of them will not go back to the way their lives were. And technology can play this great way to help consumers, and particularly as we continue to see, work and home life be a really big blur. There's a huge opportunity there as well.
Well, this has been great. Do you have any questions for me, Elizabeth?
Well, yeah. Well, let me ask you, tell me what was so enticing about joining Parks Associates. We're so pleased to have you join our team.
That's a good question. What I would probably say is that, having a background on the product side, working, for a number of very visible companies like Compaq and Dell and Alienware and other companies like that, Sling Media a few years ago, and I did some work for Nito Robotics. When you're on the product side, you're always looking for information. You're always looking for data to give you an edge. And I think it would shock the average person when they understood that in many cases, marketeers, product people out there are making decisions sometimes in a vacuum. It's shocking. Even you would think, oh, well, there's all this information available on the web. It's a no-brainer to be able to make product decisions. And what good product marketing people do, there's thousands of what I like to call micro decisions that go into developing a product. And if you have research that really can tell you, there's a consumer over here that might be more predisposed to this feature set versus that feature set. They'll prioritize more this higher on the consideration scale, when they're making a product decision. That's enormously helpful. And, and I honestly have never really had that kind of exposure. I mean, in fact, I've worked for companies that used Parks Research before, but now being on the other side, to me, it's always been intriguing to have that kind of information at your fingertips. And, I wish I had a time machine. I could have gone back 20 years ago. I would have been a bigger Park Associates customer.
Well, we're really excited for you to be able to, even dig in deeper to some of our research and also help, really begin building out our products further to provide that strategic insight. So, it's awesome to have you on board.
I'm excited to be here. And Elizabeth, listen, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me for today's inaugural podcast. For our viewing and listening audience, please subscribe to the SmartTechCheck podcast on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And until next time, have a great week, and thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you.